Here we go.
Marker, take 5. Beep, beep.
Welcome to the
Top my.
podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Ding dong.
Hello.
What's going on?
Are you playing soccer?
I know.
No, this is weightlifting attire.
That
Classic weightlifting.
in the future, we're gonna have polo shirts for our competitions.
Oh, good, good. So throwing it back to the classic days of weightlifting.
Back to the classics. Actually, looking like a professional coach instead of a dumbass with our flip flops on in the background while our lifter does, a competition lift in the international stage. No big deal.
But that's a different classic, right? The flip flops are like dad sandals.
Yeah.
That's a different elite style classic. There can only be the professional and the person who cares so little about what everyone else thinks and is just about the lifting and their lifter, right?
That's right.
Oh, I do have a mask if we go on that route.
I mean, technically, just me and Tommy should have masks. But...
We should technically, yeah. We're definitely within 6 feet. I could stand way over there.
Yeah.
And shout.
I'm socially distancing myself while doing this podcast.
I didn't think about that.
By the way, so I got my MRI today.
Oh, shoot, you did.
I was wearing
Tell
this
me about
mask, and the woman said, "I really like your smile." And I said, "Thank you."
So is that a pencil or a Sharpie?
Sharpie. So at first, when you do the Sharpie, then you put it on, you're like,
Woo!
yeah, it's great. I made sure my hair didn't get messed up in the MRI. She was like putting headphones on me. I'm like, can you just be careful?
Yeah.
Wait, well, it was a lower body MRI, right? Did they stick you all the way in just to get the...
Up to here. My head wasn't in the MRI.
Oh, it was that way. Okay,
But I
got
still
it.
had to put my head down, and she had me put earplugs in and the headphones on.
All right.
No.
Yeah, the only MRI I've been in was where I was completely encapsulated in it, and like I couldn't fit in it, so I'm like here
Yeah.
for a long time, and they're like, "We're gonna need you to breathe normally," and I'm like, "That's not gonna happen, lady."
Like, okay, I'm gonna break the machine when I take a deep breath. Oops, my bad. How much does that thing cost?
And this,
$1.5 million? Oh well.
Yep.
I was probably in there for about 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah,
It
it's
was-
almost an hour.
Yeah, that's about how long it took. But she, I actually was thinking about this. I got an MRI back in 2018 when I had my snowboarding accident, and I do not remember that whatsoever. It's almost like I blacked out when I was getting the MRI taken.
Oh,
Because I
whoa.
was sitting there, I'm like, I don't remember laying here like this for 45 minutes with this shitty hip that I had at the time.
It was this traumatic experience that you decided was not necessary.
Pretty much. Or my brain just shut it off completely. So yeah, I must have blacked out or something, because all I remember is going from the hospital bed to the MRI table that inserts into the MRI. Okay, any ladies listening right now, if we broadcast this part of the podcast, do not get mad at my statement. I am just saying I can imagine. I have no idea what it feels like, but this is the only thing that I could think of would be equivalent to going into labor.
Oh, would be what?
So my hips, right? I fell 30 feet. For those listening that don't know about my injury, I fell 30 feet off of a jump onto my back left hip. My snowboard rotated, and my right foot rotated outwards violently, and I tore my right adductor. But they thought every single medical professional going into the ER, even the paramedics who picked me up and the ski patrol who brought me down to the lodge and all that, every single one of them said, "Oh man, I've seen this before. You totally broke your hip." So you have the two hip bones that come together, and you have this cartilage that kind of merges the two together called the pubic symphysis. Those three pieces make the pubic symphysis.
Yeah.
And the only way I can describe it is basically if you imagine taking a crowbar and putting it between your hip bones and trying to pry it open violently. That's what it felt like every time I moved a half of a millimeter. So going from the hospital bed to the MRI table, I was in excruciating pain, the most pain I've ever felt in my life. And it was in that region where a woman gives birth. So I was like, this is what labor feels like.
Man, I mean, I can see what you're saying, right? Like your hips are splitting. Although I don't know if you've heard, right, of the study saying the most comparable thing would be a kidney stone. and that in most cases, the perceivable pain is actually higher than childbirth, according to women.
Well, it's because guys are wusses, that's why.
Well,
women have a higher pain tolerance for sure.
Yeah.
It takes women into the account, right? So kidney stone, even for a woman, most women agree that that is more painful than childbirth.
Unless they've never had a child, then they just imagine that it's more painful. Who knows?
Well, then that would be a null participant, right? That wouldn't be in the.
Yeah.
But let me back up so that I'm the same size as you guys. There we go.
You guys are not the lads. You are not lad splitting like me. Come on.
The lads.
That's
The coolest thing though, watch this. You ready? Deflate one side. Inflate. Deflate. Inflate. Deflate. Inflate. In fact, my son Ari, he is from Slovakia. I don't know. He always comes up to me and he goes, Papi, in his voice exactly. Papi, can I pump you up? Like this, and I'm like, yeah, okay. And he takes my arm and he goes, oh, that's so much better. He goes, can I deflate you? I'm like, yeah, okay. And he touches my nose.
Oh, that's so much better.
I like that.
Yeah.
Interactive.
Anyways, we have too much fun, sometimes so much fun that I'm like, dude, go like in your room and do something fun by yourself. It's great. So this is episode 1 of the Top My podcast. Oh, that sounds nice. That's a nice ring to it.
I like it.
Good job, Mark.
Yeah, great job.
Proud of you, dude.
I tried my best, tried my hardest.
You don't try, you do.
Exactly. Move or die, man.
I doed my best.
So on this podcast, we're essentially talking about anything and everything. We're going to have a schedule of events where basically our first podcast is ad-libbed. So hi, welcome to the ad-lib podcast. The next podcast will either be a research-based or a guest speaker. And the next one after that, and it will recur in this order, will be ad-lib again. So you can guess how it's going to go on week 4. If you can't guess, then maybe just tune in on week 4 and you'll see if you're right or not. Otherwise, we are going to talk about everything health, fitness, habit change, lifestyle management, behavior modification, Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, cardio. No.
So in the general scope of health and fitness, that world, but not
the cardio part. No, we're
not limited to this.
Yeah. I actually had someone message me where, if you're listening to this podcast like way down the line and we're no longer in quarantine. Right now we're in quarantine. It sucks. It's been like 2.5 months almost. Someone kept messaging me and they were like, I really want to come to your gym because I really need to do cardio. And I'm like, okay, 1, you live in California, so go outside and do some cardio.
Yeah.
2, I have one piece of cardio equipment. It's called a rower, and it's the worst thing to do cardio ever because I did like 2 minutes on the thing, and I could run for miles on end, usually. Right now, I'm not really the best runner. But I got on that thing. I was like, all right. And this was like a month ago when we first opened. I was like,
would that make it the best? Would that make it better? You're saying that makes it worse.
I don't know. Well, I was dedicated to doing 10 minutes on the thing.
I'm gonna go black shirt. That we all are wearing a black shirt.
Yeah. Well, mine's kind of like heathered black. It's kind of a grayish, but anyways.
Keep it G though. Keep it G-rated.
Yeah, like
Mark.
if you have another layer, then you can take your shirt off again. Otherwise, like we're trying to be sensitive to it. No, but the rower I like dedicated to doing 10 minutes because I was like, I'm gonna lose a little bit of fat, do a little cardio, burn a little extra calories. I don't know why. I was crazy at the moment. And I started on the thing. I was like 1 minute in. I was like, screw 10 minutes. I'm doing 5.
Yeah, 10 minutes is a long time, even just at a steady state on the road.
And I wasn't going balls to the wall, which is typically my character. I go balls to the wall and everything. But I was like 1:30 in, and I was like, screw 5 minutes. I'm doing 2.5 minutes. I was like 1:45 in. I was like, screw 2.5 minutes. I'm doing 2 minutes and I'm done. Forget this. And I literally have not touched the thing since.
Well, that may be why typical programming on the rower, right, is more calorie, meter, distance-based, something like that, versus a long time.
Yeah, it's like interval.
I don't think I've never done rower for time-based. I've always done it for meters.
I'll do it every so often for like 10 reps just to warm my legs up, and that's about it. Like, because you can really push through it. That's about it. Yeah, 10 reps and I'm done.
I've never heard that kind of programming on a rower.
Well, this was like when my knee was really hurting me. In case you don't know, I'm really accident prone. I'm hurt all the time.
I'm picturing that on a program, be like, oh, we got 4 sets of 35 reps on the rower.
Maybe that's the latest and greatest from Top My Workout. Who knows? So if you're tuning into this podcast and you don't know about us as a health and fitness company and as a coaching team, we all work at a weightlifting facility called Top My Workout. It's based in Long Beach, California, and we are the 3 head coaches of the facility. We have we're in quarantine, so we have like 60 athletes right now doing in-home programming. But when we're not in quarantine, before we accumulated 20-something more people, we had like 35 to 40 athletes who were coming in on a regular basis. And God, do I miss them all.
And it is worth noting, we are the best coaches you've never heard of.
Not particularly the best coaches, because if we were the best, that would just be bragging. And you will never be the best at anything. If you think you're the best at something, maybe like Kobe was the best, or whatever your argument is, but there will always be someone better down the line, or there was someone better before, and you don't know. Did Michael Jordan and Kobe ever play with each other?
Right. Well, we're definitely not the
world. But did they really?
But not
play?
not at peak time.
It was like, hey man, let's play a game and see who's better than the other, and they're screwing around. It's not like an NBA finals, not like that. But we are the best coaches you've never heard of, being that we really put our heart and soul into all of our programming. You've probably never heard of any of us unless this is 10 years down the line and we're really, really well known. Then I guess our name is irrelevant at that point. But
probably not even that.
That would be cool to look back on. Like, oh, hey, look at that.
And I think we should always keep the slogan of the best coaches you've never heard of. And when we're world famous, people will be like, what are you talking about? We all know you. I'm like, I know, but it was a thing 10 years ago,
Well, you better forget about us.
Yeah, forget about us and then rediscover us.
Just constantly.
Yeah. Well, let's go in order. Coach Mark, why don't you give us and let's actually stick to a 30-second spiel. Give us a 30-second breakdown of who you are and why you love to coach.
All right. So I'm Coach Mark. I am a USAW weightlifting coach. I coach all things mental toughness, body toughness, making people stronger in their bodies and in their minds and their hearts. I love to coach people because I am one of the weakest human beings that I know, right? In the mind and in the body. And I've experienced what it feels like to go from a very weak mind, a shell, an anxious, quiet, kind of person who doesn't have this eagerness to learn and to teach other people anything really, right? Through lifting and through moving my body well, I feel that I've grown so much. And that's what I want to impart onto other people, right? Be bigger, be better, be stronger in mind, body, and everything.
Wow. And, I've known you since February, right? February of 2020. And it is, I have to look at my phone to see what month it is. Stupid quarantine.
It is
May. So I've known you for 3 months. I would never know from your personality and your character, which I think this speaks volumes of you. I would never know that that's the person that you were. So you developed.
Oh, yeah. Completely different, right? I could show you videos and pictures and just, this would never have been anything I would have thought I was doing, right? If you told me I'd be, coaching people, reaching out to them online, doing Zoom classes, recording a podcast with you guys, I would have just hung up the phone and gone upstairs and tried playing some video games to forget about what we just said.
Well, hey, past you, I would play video games with you. Call of Duty was my favorite, so.
Yeah. In another life, we would be hosting a video game podcast.
Ooh.
Twitch.
Yeah. And my username would be Cool Dude 123.
For that guy.
No, so I actually wasn't really into all this stuff, but I had a username when I had AOL that was Heavy 40 Ounce, so Heavy 40OZ. And it's because Heavy was a rollerblading company and 40 Ounce was one of their slogans. And I had no idea, so I just put it all together. And people were messaging me all the time, so bro, you like to drink or what? And I'm like, why do people always ask me this stuff? I have no idea. And then later on in my college years, my username was Hollywood 420.
You're oh, there you go.
Yeah, because I went to Massachusetts and everyone called me Hollywood because I moved from California, which everyone associates people from California with Hollywood for some reason. And then 420 because, you know, I don't know why. Take your biggest guess. All right, on to you, Coach Tommy. What you got?
Oh, is it my turn now?
30-second
I
rant.
thought we were going in order.
We're going in order of best.
To bestest this.
I was saying best to least, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, all right. Well, anyways, all right. So I'm Coach Tommy. I'm the primarily powerlifting coach here, right? But I have my USAW as well, and soon to be USAPL.
Yep.
So then,
Quarantine
yes.
5. Boom. You were about to actually.
I was
give me a high
actually
five.
going to give you a high
Don't
five.
do that. Wait. Oh wait.
Oh, Mark.
Do you like the sound effects?
I do.
That was really good. I did mine slow mo.
I did that myself.
High five.
I create my own sound effects and I do my own stuff. All right, back to you.
Anyway, so yeah, so resident powerlifting and weightlifting coach. And I mean, I got into coaching because of my past coaches, right? Like we all have people who have mentored us or helped us do that. And someone in my previous athletic career took time to take, you know, me under their wing and teach me how to do things and show me how to do things. And it's only fair to do the same thing for someone else, you know? So I absolutely love coaching. This is my passion. I think about it while I'm not here at home at other, you know, temporary jobs, unfortunately, you know, but I definitely miss coaching right now, being in this quarantine. I wish COVID would go away and we could just open back up.
No vid.
Definitely get back to it.
No vid.
It will go away, slowly but surely.
Yeah.
Yes.
It'll just be so the flu epidemic actually, you know, the flu started to get weaker over time, and now we still have the flu, but it doesn't kill as many people.
Right.
People still die from it, but it's not as many.
We may just like occasionally come down with it, like you're saying, right, with the flu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be like COVID season, flu season.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's already like 40 different strains now or something like that,
Yeah.
which the flu's the same. Like it started with a couple
Mutates.
and now it mutates. Yeah. I mean, that's how everything works, right? That's why we don't have a cure for the common cold.
Right.
It always mutates.
Exactly.
That's how our bodies work. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Are constantly different versions of like our experiences and what we've gone through and our movement patterns.
Yeah, well, essentially, virus will jump from host to host, and it'll learn how this particular host fights off the disease, right? And then a strain of it will come out and go to this host, right? And from host to host to host, it'll all develop and mutate. And then there are hundreds of mutations eventually, so it's horrible.
We are all virologists, just so you all know.
Yeah.
So, you mean that we host viruses?
Yes,
Yes.
in that sense.
We're the best coaches that people don't know, so how do they know who we are anyway? Just saying.
That's true. All right. I'm Coach Chad. I am the owner of Top My Workout and proud family man of these guys and all of our people that come to Top My Workout. I've been a personal trainer for about 15 years in like big box gyms, like 24-hour fitness and Boston sports clubs when I lived in Massachusetts. And there's nothing wrong with big box gyms for the most part, but the corporate route is just not my thing whatsoever. I've been in it for the longest time just so that I could learn the ropes of how to open my own place and how to make people as happy as possible in a community. So I think my beliefs are all facilitated and have come to life in this room behind us. And this is one member said that this is what the inside of my heart looks like, and that made me really happy because this is like my favorite space. And so we focus on scientific programming and community because the scientific programming is really fascinating. You put together a sound program of like a 4 to 6 week periodization program, and you get someone on it. You get 40 people on the same program, even a cookie cutter program. Everyone is going to get a similar but different result. So the body works in different ways, compensations, you know, different muscle fiber types, all that. And it's just really fascinating. The human body is a massive puzzle that I love to try and figure out on a regular basis. So what?
This puzzle is the right word here.
It really is, you know, and like I've tried to figure out this puzzle from person to person, and however many hundreds of athletes we've all had together, every single one of them is a puzzle and has their own issues that we have to deal with. Not the person mentally, but maybe they do. But like, you know, their knee might bug them and you can't figure out why. Their hip might bug them, you can't figure out why. And then they do they tweak this one thing on their deadlift, all of a sudden their pain goes away, or you tweak it the other way and all of a sudden they have pain. So it's really interesting to coach people and give them an experience where they can get stronger, both physically and mentally, like you said. But then also it's just like, it's for coaches, it's like a drug. Like we have to come back. We have to coach people. We have to get them better. And the greatest scenario I've ever put myself in with an athlete or with multiple athletes is competition. It is the coolest setting. The brain shuts off or shuts down, one of the two, and the person just performs or crumbles under pressure. But that's also our job, is to coach them through that mental crumbling so their body can actually perform to its fullest. I love this fitness facility and this industry. It's great.
Yeah, no, coaching is amazing, right? And in terms of like making a body a better performing piece of equipment or a better performing system, like it's not all that complicated. What is complicated is the individual aspects of each person, right? Even if we all had the same bodies, just mentally having to, I don't want to say deal with, but like the different considerations that people come and bring into their lives, like this is how much I sleep, this is how much I worry about things, this is what I do for work, right? That alone can take a really simple thing like making someone faster and make that a puzzle in itself, making someone stronger.
Well, I think that a lot of people don't talk about this, but the coaching part of it too is like the coach has to mesh well with the athlete, right? Everyone thinks like, well, this is like the best coach I've ever had, but what if you went to that coach and they really were the best coach that all of these people have ever had, but then they just don't mesh well with you and your personality? There have been many, many people that I can get along with, but then there have been a handful of people where I start training them, and the next session, and like, I've gone home and like talked to Raquel, my wife, about this. And I've been like, I can't figure this person out. Like, we don't click. And like 3-4 sessions in, we're like, there was one person in particular, I like turned to her and she turned to me and was like, it was really great working with you. Let me get you another personal trainer. And they're like, yes, totally. Thank God. It's like, it just didn't work. But like, that's the cool part about coaching, is like, you can cater to so many different people depending on your personality and how you coach. And you can even ask people for permission. Like, hey, do you want to be coached? Like, do you want me to be your cheerleader, or do you want me to be really hard on you? What's better for you? Hard on you? Okay. Mark, you need a cheerleader, or you want someone to be hard on you?
I need a cheerleader. I just need a
So
section.
I'm going to coach you differently than I'm going to coach you,
Yeah.
This is cool. It's like we're all sitting together. Mark, I'm putting my arm around you.
Mark, you have that. I think what you should do next time is have like a cutout of Chad's arm and even detail it down to the tattoo. So that way you could like,
I can like
have
do
it come
this
way.
and my arm is actually like coming.
Or then like when he sat in the middle of the screen, you have a cutout of his face, and then you have him sitting in the middle.
There we go.
I'll create a cutout of me and I'll send it to you, and then I'll just sit in the middle.
And then
Like-
perfect, right
like
there.
this.
And then the other
And you
half
have
is
it,
on
yeah.
your side.
Or you can just screenshot how it is, and then I can put the background.
Oh,
Oh, and
a
I'll be
good
sitting
idea.
there. Yeah. Okay.
Take a picture of what you're looking at, and it'll be like I'm on the other side of the desk.
Yes. Ooh, I like that.
That's a good idea.
So you are essentially the computer.
So the wall could be behind me, right? The wall and what's there? The window? No, the windows. Man, I don't even know what this side of top.
Window to the wall.
Like it's been that long, I don't even remember.
It has.
Let me give you a tour of the place so you remember what your job looks like, what your work.
Well, really, right? Like I only was there like 2, maybe 3 weeks of a full week, and then this all happened.
Yeah.
I know.
Quick.
And we're the best of friends. It's like we're all meant to be.
Just still training together, still training together apart. I saw a hashtag like alone together. I liked that.
I'll be honest.
It's one of our next t-shirts.
I don't like that one.
You don't like it?
No, I think it's dumb, but that's me. You can like it, Mark. I'm not going to hate you.
I like
You like what you like.
I like it.
Anyways, I want to go back to what we were talking about a second ago, though, because like you mentioned, so I would even go down as far as changing the language a little bit to what you're using in terms of people, as far as like programming or even coaching. And it's not that they're complicated, it's that it's more complex, right? So like,
Great word.
I'm going through this online. I'm going through a course right now to make me a better coach and learn how to have that relationship building, and bam. Ooh, that was a double. That was sweet.
Sound effects were a little off.
We like
gotta
move the
fire
same
sound
way
effects
though.
guy.
Wait, Chad, you should just go like this.
Yes.
Wait, but then someone has to make the sound effects.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
We
Oh,
can-
wait, back to Tommy. Back to Tommy. Let's get.
Record it, and
I'm
then
gonna
you
buy
can
a
always
soundboard and have it here. Or I can actually I'll superimpose the sounds over.
There you go. Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, there we go.
So just cut that clip of you clapping earlier, and then just.
Yeah.
Or just make one now.
Yeah. That's perfect. And anytime you can speak like whatever language you want, because I can always beep it out if we want to do that. If not, it's just an uncensored podcast.
But I don't know how to speak any other language except English.
Fuck, man. That's just so that you have something to be. I want to get.
He's like, I just really want to get some Tourette's out.
I just need to hear how you handle it. So I want to see.
Well, I'm going to superimpose a beep over it.
Or it might
We're not going to
be
be
like,
podcast.
Now we'll be an explicit podcast
okay.
because every so often we're just going to be like, you know what this fucking guy did?
Well, I mean, Mark took his shirt off earlier, so.
Yeah, we're going to censor his nipples.
yeah.
If you're not watching this podcast and you're only
No idea
hearing
what
it,
we're talking about.
you're not missing out on anything. Don't worry. Don't look us up on YouTube. It's fine. No big deal.
You don't need it. The
You
audio.
also won't see Mark's massively oversized coffee cup.
I know that's one thing that I would recommend the video version for. The only reason is because of your gigantic coffee cup.
My gigantic what?
Coffee cup.
Your coffee cup.
Oh yes. Thank you. Redo the coach. I gotta redo the coach.
Coach Ma?
Coach Ma.
Say Coach Ma.
Maybe you guys don't know this about me yet because you haven't spent much time here, but I have oversized and undersized things all over the place. So I have a mug that says Coach Mark just like that. That's about this big, and it says Mark, and it's legible. And I'll show it to you another time. I have to go get it. It's somewhere else. But I have this, and these kind of pairings are everywhere.
That's awesome. Just like your platform and your baby platform, right? Your platform that's ready to grow.
I'll show you one right now. Right, so
I don't know if I want to know what else you have that's oversized and undersized though.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it PG-13 at least.
We already talked about this, and you're the one that's failing every single time so far.
yeah, you're right. So when I used to teach PE, right? So I had my whistle. Occasionally, I would have to bring out the bad boy and just use the mega whistle here.
Now, if you're listening to this podcast, you will have no idea what that was. It was not a train.
It was not a train. And with this one, I got to open my mouth to get it.
Mark, I think you just found your new prop that we're going to use for future episodes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds right.
Oh,
Be
God.
aggressive.
Every episode,
We can each
I
have
can
a
show you
prop.
another thing that I have. Every episode, I can show and tell my tiny and giant things.
Yeah. Well, that could be another thing that we do is every episode we do a show and tell.
Yeah.
You bring something to the podcast or to the whatever. What's it called if it's a video cast? Is that what it's called? A video cast? Wow. I just created a new term.
I still like podcast though. Like Rogan filmed all of it.
Yeah.
So
Video
I like
podcast.
video casts better though.
So with like something like a vlog, it's a video log, right?
Vlog. It's a video vlog.
So it's
Video
not the same as a podcast because a
Yeah.
podcast is typically longer in duration. A blog is shorter in duration.
But like the word parts of podcast, where do those fall into place? So what is the pod?
Well, so the pod was like when Apple started,
Audio.
they had episodes coming to their iPod. So like instead of a broadcast, it's a podcast.
Are you serious? That's where it comes from?
No, I actually just figured this out. Just figured it
I
out.
was just like Mark. Like as you were saying that, Mark just did the action. I just couldn't move because I was so blown away. Like that just happened.
I'm wicked smart. I figured it out right now. I didn't even Google the shit. I just looked at it and thought about it. And I was like, oh my God, that makes sense. It's a play on words, people. It's a play on fucking words. Anyways, should we get back to the whole complexity thing that
Oh,
Coach
yeah.
Tommy was talking
I
about?
think I'm the one that actually let that train get away from me because I think
Good
I may
for
have
you.
like
Good for you.
anyway.
Yeah, let's get back.
Hey, we're docked back at the station, and everyone is getting back on board.
Okay, all right, got this. So anyways, all right. So yeah, like when it comes to complicated versus complex, right, in this like course that I'm doing, complicated things typically have a manual, a set of rules, or some sort of solution, right? So it's like math is complicated, but people are complex because there's not necessarily rules or, you know, a scenario that you can have a specific answer to, right? And so, like, yeah, like I might prefer to have a certain way of coaching versus you, Mark, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be that way all the time.
Right.
And even like dealing with youth athletes before in my past job, like every day was different with those kids. They might come in and have an attitude one day, and the next day they're like angels. And you just don't know how you're going to approach that. And so
all lack of impulse control.
it's yes, this part of the brain is underdeveloped. But I mean, even as adults, right? Like I'm not like there's nobody specific that comes to mind, and I wouldn't call anybody out anyways, but not anybody, everybody is going to be completely different in terms of how they come in the door that day. And the same goes for what we talked about before when it comes to programming. Like you mentioned sleep and eating and all these other like outside external factors that don't necessarily have to do with maybe their muscle physiology or their bone structure or anything like that. And the same is true when it comes to applying coaching philosophy and the way that we're going to approach our athletes. Like, I'm not going to coach the same person the same way every single time, but I'm also not going to coach them the same way every single day because they're completely different day in and day out.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that a lot of people overlook is you come into the gym, and I actually have an example, and he already told me all of our athletes told us that we can call them out and we can basically cue them and coach them on this podcast. So I might not mention his name. I don't know. Maybe you guys can figure out who it is and there'll be the fun in it. But one of our athletes threw in, he actually posted on Instagram at the end of his workout on our app, you can add exercises. So he added like 165-pound squats for however many sets. I think it was like 6 sets.
Yeah.
It was 25 squats, then 20, then 15, then 10, then 5. So I think it was 5 sets, but that's how many reps he did with 165. And I messaged him. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, well, I just need a little extra. But so that's like the physical stress that you're putting on your body.
Okay.
But then you have to think about sleep, you know, your lack of sleep. If you sleep really well at like 6-7 hours and you don't sleep well at 8 hours, it's because you don't sleep at 8 hours like enough.
Right.
You know, you don't do it consecutively. So you feel tired. You feel like you're oversleeping as if you were to sleep for 12 hours. Right. But then also your stress, like if I turn to Tommy right now and I yell at him, he's either going to punch me in the face or he's going to like back away. It's called fight or flight. Don't you punch me, man.
I will social distance punch you in a second.
That'd be really funny. Do it. But like these are all stresses on the body. You know, your boss yelling at you, which guys I would never do to you, right? I might. Tommy messed up the other day, and he was like, "All right, I can take it. Yell at me." And I was like, "Fuck, shit, that's all I got." It's like the worst I'm gonna get. Or like Mark, to you the other day, I was like, "Dude, you just hit that on your calendar." Like that's my way of like reprimanding you. Like, do better, man. Come on, get your shit together. Do better. That's it. That's all I got. But like, if your boss yells at you, or if back in the day when you're a caveman, you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, right? Either way, it's the same stress. Dude, have you seen them? They're kind of impressive animals. You wouldn't laugh if it was actually chasing you. Anyways, that stress is the same. Like your body recognizes it in the same way. So physical stress, mental stress, emotional stress, they're all the same on the body. So someone's having a really shitty day and they come in, they're like, I've had the worst day. I haven't slept. I haven't eaten. I've been stressed out all day long. I just want to lift something heavy. It's like, probably not the best thing for you. Even though you really want to do it, you really want to come in here wanting to get that frustration out, it's probably not the best thing for you because your body is totally stressed out already and you're just going to break it down even more. And a week later, for some reason, you have the flu. I wonder why.
Yeah, exactly.
I think stress is something that's interesting though. And I feel like we're kind of moving this part more towards like coaching aspects, which I think is interesting because like when I took my USAW, we talked a little bit about programming. We spent more on practicals than anything else. And the 20 minutes that we talked about programming, we talked mostly about stress. not reps and sets.
Right.
And I think stress is interesting because like everybody has, like, to your point, like everybody has like this stress pot, right? Or like a pot that they have to put stress in. And like you said, whether it's good stress or bad stress, your body just recognizes stress.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. You mentally perceive good or bad stress, but your body's stress is stress. And the three biggest things that people typically tend to stress out about are work, home, and family. And like home and family are typically separate, right? Because you have to pay bills, you have to financially run the place. Family is your actual like relationships, the people in your life. And those three things typically this coach said that those three things typically tend to take up 90% of the stress pot, right? Just between those three things. The other 10% is the amount of room that we have as coaches to program accordingly, make sure that we don't kill our athletes. And if we program like poorly, or we don't take into account how they're feeling that day, or how stressed out they are, or maybe how good they're feeling, then we might either overflow that stress bucket or that stress pot, or we might not reach that amount that they need in order to push them forward to the next day. And I think to your point, like I posted this on my Instagram a couple weeks ago, and I might even go find it again and post it because I know the athlete that you're talking about. And
we know our people. No way.
I think not that that's a bad thing. I'm not a fan of, so I have to say this somewhat PC because I don't want to upset anybody, but
I can always like do a voiceover.
I don't. Oh, that's true. Okay.
I'll voice over your voice.
My mouth is
like,
going to
hold
be.
on.
My mouth is moving, and it's your voice
my
that's
voice.
speaking.
Like that wasn't politically
think-
correct. Let me Google that, and then I'm gonna do a voiceover. That's the politically correct thing.
Like I remember when I was coaching at UC Riverside or interning, whatever. And one of the athletes was like, "Hey, like to the director of strength and conditioning, he's like, hey, like, can I do this after the workout?" And he's like, "Is it in your program?" He's like, "Well, no." He's like, "But can it be?" He's like, "I think you should stick to what's on the program." And like that's a Division I athlete, right? So like for them, it has to be dialed in because you need to get them 1% better in order to compete against somebody else. With our athletes, it's not necessarily like that because we're not actually having all of our athletes going to compete. But at the same time, our best interest is their best interest, or their best interest is our best interest, right? I only want what's best for all of my athletes that I'm programming for. So they should stick to the program, right? Like if you want extra or you feel like you need extra, then okay, let's talk. But like to the post that I mentioned, I posted a couple weeks ago was one of the Mind Pump guys. And he's like, you don't have to feel like worn out or beat down after every single workout. If you are, there's probably something wrong that's going on with your body, or you're on an entirely wrong program for you.
Yep.
Like just because you feel, really good or you don't feel like it did anything after a workout doesn't mean it's not working.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And this is a message for both athletes and coaches out there. I have so many things that I want to say.
I know.
So
it's
many
overwhelming.
things. I know, right? So number one, a coach's job, I don't think coaches say this enough. A coach's job, first and foremost, is injury prevention. And athletes are bound to get hurt.
Yeah.
Small injuries, hopefully. That is the goal, is to, if an athlete is going to get injured because of the amount of stress they're putting on their body over time, it is a small, workable injury, not a massive one that puts them out and they can't use their left leg and they have to work all other body parts except the left leg. Which brings me to my next point. If you have an injury, work all the other parts of your body, just not that one.
Yes.
Yeah. That's number one, is our job is injury prevention, right? Number two, if a coach programs something for you, it is most likely that they know what they're doing and they are programming it for a reason. So if you want to add more things in to reiterate what Tommy said, then okay, have your coach do that for you. And one thing that I said to this athlete is, there are such things as a deload week, or there are such things as like giving your body a little bit of a rest break, because we shouldn't be pushing our bodies to the max all the time. That is how you get injured. And sure enough, one of his next comments was, "I think I have tendonitis in my elbow."
Oh no.
Interesting.
I got that text this morning too.
Well, I know why too. It's because he's pushing himself on the cleans when he doesn't have mobility to hold the clean in the front rack.
Actually, that's what I was thinking about this morning too.
I messaged him. I already told him.
Okay,
I'm like,
cool.
bar work only, no weight.
You did my job for me. I was going to discuss it with you, but bam.
It's kind of like a One of those like old Chinese films.
That's what I was just thinking too. Especially if like you dub your voice over my mouth moving,
You mean
then
if
it
I,
really is like.
Yeah.
like that? All right. Coach Mark, do you have anything to say? We both kind of went on our quick rants. Do you have anything to say over the?
I mean, I think you guys pretty much covered it. I feel like one thing, so if I was watching this, there is so much good stuff happening that maybe if we like did a quick write-up of like the important points of what you just said, because both of you just said awesome stuff, right? So whether it pops up on the screen or if there's like a write-up that goes along with this in the description, like in this podcast, this, that, and that. Coach Chad covers X, Y, and Z, and Coach Tommy covers this and that. Because I almost want to press rewind right now and kind of go listen again to what both of you just said. I like that.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
perfect. That means we had an effective message.
I know.
Yeah. Cool. And the thing is with like a podcast and stuff like that, when you go into, Apple Podcasts or whatever the other platforms are called. I have an iPhone, so I have no idea what the other stuff's called. But if you go into that, there is a synopsis usually or like a write-up of each podcast episode. And so it really is up to the person providing the podcast to put that much information in if they want to. And that's just going to spark their interest. So we'll definitely put some show notes in there and write as much as we can so that you can read through it if you don't want to hear us blabbering about random stuff and, going off on a tangent about giant whistles.
Or maybe you do.
Right.
Maybe.
You know what? I do want to add a certain thing. So you guys both touched on how different.
Hey, we're socially distancing. We didn't touch anything.
So you guys both socially distanced towards the topic idea of different stresses, right? As perceived by our body are going to be the same thing, right? Whether that's emotional, like family, work, family life, anything like that. So what would you say when someone says that the job of a coach is to help a person deal with all those things as well, right? Because I found that can be a delicate balance, right? Like a coach encompasses not just what we're doing in the gym, right? But if stress management falls under one of the roles of a coach, that means that we need to help manage stress, knowing that it's in work, life, family, relationships, sport, performance, all these things, and not just within our building, what we do in our building.
Right.
And so to what extent is appropriate, for a coach to become involved in the stress management of things outside of training?
You can take that one.
So
I have one thing to say about that, so I'll say it after.
okay.
And I'll just
And I'll say what I have after Chad.
go.
Right?
Okay, I'll be quick. So I think it depends, right? Like my favorite answer to everything ever is it depends. I think one, it depends if it's in your scope of practice, because a coach kind of covers a multitude of things, right? You're not just coaching athletes. You're not just figuring out how to program. You're not just helping them with technique. You're not just doing things on the spot. You're a confidant. You're building that relationship. But you're also having to put yourself in a position of authority to where you're not necessarily their friend, but you're not peers, right? Like I am not a peer with my athlete, and I never will be. Whether they're older than me, younger than me, the same age as me, it doesn't matter. I'm still the coach, and what goes has to go. Like what I say has to go. But there are those days where you have to somewhat be not a therapist, but at least a sounding board, And I think it depends on kind of I think it depends on your expertise. I think it depends on your background, especially in education, because we are not therapists. We're not psychologists. We should not be prescribing anything. We should not be suggesting anything. If it's something that, is super outside of our scope of practice, outside of just listening to something, because sometimes that's all athletes need is for us to listen, then you might have to sit down and have that serious conversation. Like, hey, you might actually have to find somebody to talk to about this problem.
Or you recommend.
Right. And I think with that being said too, one of the other courses that I am in right now, because I have 4 different online courses that I'm doing, education is a stress management course. So I'm hoping that by the end of summer, I can actually claim to help with stress management, especially in this time frame, which is the whole reason why I signed up, because what's more stressful than what we're in right now? People are losing their jobs left and right. They're trying to stay fit. Some of them are not able to stay fit because of X, Y, and Z. So that's one thing that we can market later. I was kind of waiting until I finished the course to put that out there, but hopefully to be.
I mean, it's in the works, so we can always put it out there that come this date, we will be offering this service. So that's awesome.
So anyways,
nice, dude.
But yeah, so scope of practice, I think, is everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, to your point, Mark, or to your question, when we have athletes coming in and they're doing their programming, even if it's in home, the app that we use for programming actually asks 5 questions. And coaches out there, if you are not asking your people, or you don't have this built into your app already, if you are not asking them questions about their daily life, right? When our athletes walk in, it asks them how their sleep was on a 1 to 5, right? Absolutely horrible to amazing sleep. What their energy is for the day, what their mood is, what their stress is, and how sore they are. And then it gives us a rating on basically a 0 to 5 of where they're at for the day. If you guys as coaches out there are not assessing your people on a daily basis every single time they come and see you, you are doing something wrong and you are doing a disservice for your people, right? And so even asking some of those deeper questions, another job of a coach is to be, one, a role model and to lead the type of life that you're telling your athletes to lead, but also someone who is not particularly a friend or a peer, but almost on that level where you get to know them as a person, you get to know each other, you have a personal relationship, and you can trust and confide in each other, and therefore the athlete can tell you something that they might not tell their parents, or they might not even tell their best friend, because they trust you and they know that they can tell you this, and you're not going to go and tell the other coaches unless it's absolutely imperative, right? If the other coaches need to know, then you ask the athlete for permission. Can I share this with Coach Mark and Coach Tommy, right? Mark and Coach Tommy. I do this all the time. But oh yeah, true. Sorry, I need to use my little notes down here. But it's really important that you have that type of relationship. And even during this quarantine, I sent out a message to everyone. It was like, hey, I just want to throw it out there for all of you guys. If you need someone to talk to, call me and I will listen. I didn't say I will talk you through this whole situation, nothing like that. I said I'll listen, because sometimes people just need to vent and they just need to say a bunch of stuff. And when they're saying all that stuff, they're like, oh my God, I feel so much better because I finally got it all off my chest. Yeah. So that's what we are there for, other than we're going to program and beat the crap out of you in the best way possible to get your results.
Right, yeah. And I wanted to bring that up, right, that you did send that message out to everyone, right? Everyone in our community, just saying, if you need to talk to someone, we're here. I think that it is a role of the coach, right? Like you said, I've been in plenty of situations where, right, an athlete will come and just like you said, like, I don't feel comfortable telling my parents this yet, and I'm telling you, and then it becomes this not complicated, right, but like a complex role of like, okay, it's a situation by situation basis. Like, do I point you to another professional, or do we talk our way through this? And I think that's a role of the coach that, along with injury prevention, is also not talked about enough. And I think it's not talked about enough because a lot of this stuff is really personal to people, right? But I think one thing most coaches fail to do is say and remind to their athletes, like, hey, this is part of why I'm here. I'm here for you, not just performance-wise. I'm here for you in everything that may affect this, right? Everything that may affect your performance. That includes stress, it includes emotional health. To a certain extent within our scope of practice, it includes mental health. But yeah, I just thought that would be something important for us to talk about. It seems like our topic, like this is like our stress cast, right? Yeah. This whole podcast kind of turned in that direction, and I thought it'd be good to cover that as well.
Yeah.
Well, it's good that we're like ad-libbing it and it kind of develop, this discussion develops in the way that it is. And this is, when we started to talk about coaching, I was like, ooh, I like where this is going, because we're 3 coaches. And so we're explaining what our role is. But then it turns into something informational where people can actually take something away from it, instead of being like, well, great, I'm an accountant. I wouldn't go on a podcast and tell you how to account things.
Well, I mean,
I know that wasn't correct terminology, by the way. I'm just being an asshole.
I think too, like, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you got to be an asshole sometimes, because people have to know who we are, right? And if, like, I know, like, I can be that way too, even to athletes. And so part of this podcast is, right, like, we want you guys watching or listening to know, like, what we're like. And if you're like, oh, these guys, this seems like it'd be a good fit, I want to train around people like this, then come. Like Tommy said earlier, being PC may not always happen exactly in the right way. But that's because we're human, right? That we're human and we're learning, and that's what we're just constantly doing here.
And that's what sincere apologies are for, is when you're not PC and you meant to be, but it comes out the wrong way, you know?
But
We're human.
Apologize in advance.
to be delicate, though, I won't apologize for the way I think. I'm just not going to. If I say something and it happens to offend somebody, I apologize ahead of time because now you know. But
Exactly.
I've had to have several conversations with a lot of other people because I've mentioned what I think, and it's not exactly the same as everyone else.
Well, that's different though. That's an opinion, you know,
sure.
as opposed to like not being politically correct, like calling someone a name that is now not politically correct. Like in the 1990s, you can call someone this, but now it's 2020 and you can't call them that.
I think, I think, like, to that point though, right? Like, kind of going back to the complexity thing of people, like it's never the same, right? Like, you can never count on somebody being the same way. And I think as a coach, you have to be somebody that you have to know your athlete, right? Like, to Mark's point, like he just said, like, he's been in a situation where he's had an athlete that was comfortable enough to go to him, but that's building that relationship over time, right? Like, again, it's a coach-athlete relationship. You're the coach, whatever you say goes, you know. But I mean, but that's not to say that athletes can't get feedback or you're not open to listening. It's the old school, like, militant style of coaching versus a relationship-based style of coaching, where it's either, you know, it's my way or the highway, which is very old school in my opinion, versus, hey, like, yep, let's check in, let's see where you're at. And then if there is a relationship there, or at least some sort of comfortability and confidence in you or the coach, then that athlete's comfortable to come to you. And I feel like that's kind of the direction that things are turning because, you know, athletes are getting more complex. There's more, you know, there's more things that are out there. There's more opportunities. There's more resources. And as coaches, like, we have to be the ones to develop over time. It's never going to always be the same, you know, like.
And it shouldn't stay.
Huh?
And it shouldn't be the same.
Exactly. Well, and I mean, like, think about it. Like, if science and research in the medical field and the health and fitness field have been developed over so many years to what it is today, like, we're not doing the same. But, like, lobotomies don't happen anymore, right? Like, you're not, like, that's not a safe practice. That's not something that's ethically okay.
In America.
And so, I mean, but, like, in the same way, like, why would we not develop the coaching, you know, the field of coaching in the same way? You have to roll, and it has to be fluid. And as things get discovered, whether it's behavior, habitual, or what have you, it's on us to be able to figure that out and actually learn from our athletes and understand how they operate, not necessarily them, you know, tweaking and becoming what we want them to be. It's us having to cater to them a little bit as coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Mark, if you have something to say, you can say it, and then we'll wrap up, because I actually have something to say off of that point for this podcast. I think it would be a cool way to wrap it up.
Just real quick, off of what Tommy's saying, I think it's Brett Bartholomew, right? Coach off extraordinaire. Talking.
Yeah, I actually meant to mention him right now, but I forgot. But anyways.
If you still believe as a coach everything you believed 5 years ago, man, you're not doing your job right? Because so much has advanced and so much will advance 5 years from now. And so I think maybe at some point, one of our podcasts could be all of our, like, past beliefs that we laugh at now that we used to think.
I like that.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to laugh at yourself, and because I have some pretty, like, man, we'll talk about it another time. But yeah, I mean, a lot has changed in my views of what coaching is, how it happened, what programming is, how we.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have YouTube videos that I had up when Taught My Workout started on YouTube. That was, like, one of the reasons why I started Taught My Workout. I had videos up there that were, like, badass workouts, and I went back and looked at all of them, and the editing is great and the music is great and all that. But I look at my form on some of them, and I'm like, oh, Jesus, I need to take this down. Like, there's one where I'm doing a bent over row, and I am chicken heading, and it looks like my head is going to pop off. Like, I'm like, it's like, it looks violent. And I'm like, oh my God, I need, like, literally, I stopped. There was like 5 minutes left in the video. I'm like, I stop, delete. Thank God that's off the internet. Jesus.
No one has to see that again.
No one has to see that ever. Other than, like, my deadlifts and stuff.
We can do that, right?
What am I doing? A deadlift? I don't know what I'm doing. What's this? But
you were going to say something else, right?
Yeah, so I was going to say to wrap up the podcast, because we want to keep all these to an hour, because sometimes podcasts are like hour and a half to 2 hours long. Your commute is probably only an hour, so you're going to get sick of hearing us on your way home from work too. You might as well just hear us on the way to or from, not both. But for this podcast, Tommy was saying that as coaches, we need to develop, we need to listen, we need to change for the individuals around us. And that's the same thing we want to do with this podcast. We want this to be all encompassing. So whatever platform you are hearing this on or watching this on, I want you to comment. I want you guys to, put your ideas out there of things you want us to discuss. Because like I said, every so often we're going to do an ad-lib podcast like this. And then every other, we're going to do something research-based where we can all argue with each other in a really healthy, family-friendly way, right? Right? I'm looking this way like Mark is actually. Hi, Mark.
Yeah.
I know, right? Seriously. Well, why have we not been talking to each other the whole time? I've been staring forward, but you're right here. What the hell is going on? All right. But anyways, we want to have really research-based, well thought out discussions with each other so you guys can all benefit from it. And then also we're going to have guest speakers. So for some of those ad lib conversations, it can be structured, can have questions, can have suggestions from you guys. So please send in your suggestions. We're more than happy to cover topics that are especially relevant for you, but then also things that we actually know what we're talking about, because we don't want to talk about anything that we're making shit up all the time. So,
yeah. Although we probably could.
Of course we could. It's called bullshitting.
And another good thing to say here, right, is comment what you think, because we don't need just positive, that was great kind of comments, right? We're not those kinds of coaches.
This is crap. Let us know.
Yeah.
So don't give us that same feedback. I will call an athlete out when something looks like shit. So if I say something that sounds not perfect, go ahead and tell me.
But also be gentle, because this is number one, and we're very sensitive.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Don't be
Did it suck? How can we get better? Let us know. We'll coach you to get better. You coach us to get better. Let's go. All right. So we're going to wrap this podcast up. Thank you guys for tuning in. Our sponsors are, I don't know, reach out to us if you want to sponsor us.
Bluey?
Yeah, Bluey. Woo. Bluey in the background.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this podcast, imagine a blue gummy bear from Sprouts holding a
sponsored by Haribo Gummy Bears.
Oh, man, dude, I've been trying to get them to sponsor us for years. I'm working on it.
We should all three bother them.
I'm also,
Flood them.
yeah, but I'm also really afraid to throw everything out there and then see the logo and be like, you know what? That looks a lot like our gummy bear. We're going to sue you. Because I think it's different enough. He's holding a barbell, so he can't see.
No, it's different enough. And you gave him a face.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of just a blob of gelatin, right? Yeah. Anyways. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you. We're going to be doing this weekly. So we will see you next week at the top.
See y'all at the top.
See y'all at the top.
Signing off.
Bye, guys.